It's the big story of the day. It's D-Day for the Finance Minister Enoch Godongwana as he delivers the 2024 budget speech in Cape Town today. This budget comes amid a myriad of demands for more social spending and service delivery issues. Also, the growing unemployment rate announced yesterday by StatsSA is also another concern. Business editor Xolani Mbanjwa is now joining us live from outside Parliament, where we expect the Minister to be delivering his speech later on today at around 2 o'clock. Xolani, once again, good morning. What does the Labour movement want to hear from the Minister? Also taking into consideration what Kumba Iron Ore has said yesterday about the impact that the logistical challenges of this country has had on their balance sheet.
Good morning once again, Aldrin. Well, when it comes to that particular Labour movement, look no further than COSATU, who are in a tri-apartheid alliance with the African National Congress, which is the governing party. And of course, we did catch up with them after they released that particular statement a couple of days ago that looks at the fact that their demands are dealing with the interventions that President Cyril Ramaphosa spoke about in the State of the Nation address. They have not minced their words as the Labour Federation, the biggest one in South Africa. They want a myriad of things, none more important than the fact that the presidential employment stimulus, they want more money to be injected into that particular program. They are saying this program could actually absorb 2 million young people into the job market if it is well funded by November this year, something that will actually see to it that we put a dent on unemployment numbers, which actually rose as we saw from StatsSA yesterday. They also want the social relief of distress grant to be increased to a basic income grant of something between 1,200 and 1,500 rands per month for those who are unemployed. How much that is going to cost, it still remains to be seen, because it is already a massive cost, that 350 rand grant. So it's something that is quite important when it comes to COSATU also, that the state-owned entities such as Eskom, Denel and SAA are also well funded when it comes to what they actually do. Not only that, they are worried, massively worried about the impact of these austerity measures on those who need the services the most in the country. So this is what the parliamentary coordinator of COSATU, Matthew Parks, had to say about what their demands are, particularly keeping in mind that this 2024 is an election year.
The issue of taxes is always a sensitive issue. The state does need to raise additional money, but it should not come from working class or middle class families who are already struggling. There is space to increase taxes upon the wealthy, and the wealthy should pay their fair share. There's space to increase taxes upon luxury imports, because that also can help local manufacturing jobs and so forth. We think there is also space to, probably the most effective way to actually address that revenue shortfall is to give additional support to the South African Revenue Service. The tax compliance rate has increased from 61% to 64% in the past 2 years. We think we need to be given a conversation with SARS to say what support do they need, what additional resources do they need to increase tax compliance from 64% to 70%, because that can yield an additional 120 billion rand of tax that already are owed to the state. So yes, let's increase tax upon the wealthy, but most importantly, let's make sure we increase tax compliance, because there's not much point of introducing new taxes if you're not collecting the existing taxes already due to the state.
Well, and of course also, Xolani, demands from social movements such as the Alternative Information and Development Center.
Yes, we know AIDC very well. They do a lot of research in terms of the service delivery needs in many communities, and they come all the time to actually march to the steps of Parliament to make their demands heard. We did catch up with Dr. Dick Forsland, who is the senior economist at the AIDC, and they've been making a number of calls when it comes to the austerity measures that have already been introduced in order to save costs. And they mentioned that when it comes to the medium-term budget policy statement in November, already by that time, government had identified just over 30 billion rand that had already been cut from Education Department, the Police and the Health Department. And we know those are departments that are in the core phase of service delivery. What it means to see, what it seems to be, is that in the MTBPS of last year, there was a mention that there will be further cuts. These austerity measures, they don't want to call them that. It is called fiscal consolidation. This is merely to just cut those costs. And the Alternative Information and Development Center is saying 42 billion rand being cut, as it is estimated for this year's budget for the next 3 years from the three departments, police, education and health, would actually diminish service delivery that is already on its knees, and something that they are quite worried about when it comes to the demands and interventions that they are calling for this year. This is what Dr. Forsland had to say when asked about their own demands for this year's budget.
I think that what should take priority is to deal with the debt costs of the government. And as many of your viewers might know, we are now going over 20% of, it will be over 400 billion rand in this coming budget, maybe around 425 billion rand, which will go to service debt or interest on debt. And there the finance minister and the government and the treasury, of course, should take a radical turn. And they should turn to domestic funds. They should turn to the state pension fund. The state pension fund is already a big lender to the government. 13-14% of the state debt, it is a debt to the state pension fund. But the problem is that they are paying market rates on this debt. And in my view, this is completely unnecessary because the state pension fund is running with over 50 billion in surplus every year after paying pension and beneficiaries. So, that is a part of changing the whole macroeconomic framework.
So, Aldrin, when it comes to the labor and social movements in this country, they are collectively saying that there is an alternative to the status quo of South Africa's slow growth in economy, the stagnant economy, as it were, and the runaway unemployment and numbers, and of course, the way things are in terms of the growing inequality. They are saying there are alternatives. Let's not just look at the public debt or the size of the public debt, because the majority of that debt is in South African rands, not foreign currency. That's their collective sentiment ahead of the budget speech by Minister Enoch Godongwana at 2 p.m.
Xolani, thank you so much for your time. And of course, remember the two-pot retirement system which Parliament wanted to be implemented in the first quarter of this year, but that has now been extended to the 1st of September. Thank you so much for your time. The Minister of Finance will deliver his budget speech at around 2 o'clock later on this afternoon.